Oh, welcome. Today's chat is all about basically how you can practice mindfulness in the outdoors. Today's chat is sponsored by REI. And if you don't know about us, my name is Karla Amador. I'm one of the co-founders of the 52 Hike Challenge, a movement getting people outdoors once a week for a year. And I would love to see where you guys are joining us from. It looks like we have some people from Nevada. Helga is from Nevada. Thomas is from Tennessee. And Jim is joining us from San Jose. I live here in Southern California in Orange County. And I will share a little bit of my story. So back in 2014, I was actually going through a divorce. And if anyone can relate to that, this is always a very traumatic time in a person's life, right? You're transitioning, and I was feeling depressed. And about a year later, I had started this internal journey into discovering why I was feeling so bad in my life and what had gotten me up until that point in life. And so I decided to start doing this inner work. And then about a year later, I met my co-founder, Philip, who had lost 80 pounds through hiking. And, I when I was going through this journey, a friend I met asked me, if you could do anything right now, what would you do? And so for me, that question, really allowed me to sit and to visualize. And so we're going to talk a little bit about this in today's chat. But basically, when someone asks you this question, and I'm going to ask you that now, it's, if you're not in a great place and you're not where you want to be in life, how about closing your eyes for a few moments and really visualizing what it is that you would like in your life? Where would you be? What would you be doing? Close your eyes now and take a few moments, take a few deep breaths, and just think about that question. If there were no obstacles, what would you be doing with your life right now? Where would you be? Can you visualize the picture clearly? Who's there with you? How you're feeling? Listening and sharpening the sounds. So this was the question that I was asked at this really low point in my life, right? And so for some reason, I visualized myself on this mountain in Peru, and I was not a hiker at the time. And so when I met my co-founder who had lost these 80 pounds through hiking, I asked him if he would take me for a hike. And for the first time in a year and a half, I felt hope. And I felt, and I'm sorry, I'm allowing a few more people to join our chat. So for the first time in a year and a half, I felt hope and I felt good. And that was by being outside in nature. And so jokingly in 2014, I decided to create this challenge for myself to get outdoors once a week for a year. And, again, going from being a non-hiker to suddenly every weekend, I was planning a new trip. I was actually really having to push myself mentally, physically, and emotionally, because when you're climbing mountains, you're really needing to tap into your inner dialogue, right? You're needing to tap into that inner strength, because there's something about climbing peaks that really requires us to put that one foot in front of another. And, that's the time that you allow for that stillness within. And so I found myself one day tapping into that voice and realizing that I had been extremely negative. And that was really important in this journey that I call mindfulness. It's, what is that inner voice saying to you on a daily basis, even every moment, right? It's so easy for that mind, that monkey brain, to be, super negative and to constantly be going. And so what the outdoors does is it creates that stillness and that space. And so basically when I was outside, I started tapping into that stillness and going, wait a minute, my mind is so negative. And it would say things like, why are you out here? You can't make it. This is too hard. And I think everyone who climbs mountains or does these very long hikes or has physically challenged themselves in some way, shape, or form through the outdoors probably could relate to that same feeling. And so give me 1 second, you guys. I'm going to remove a few people that might be trying to take over our chat again. So yes, so as we're going through this journey, right, and you're able to tap into that becomes the awareness, right? And so something that if you're new to mindfulness, if you really think about it, why is it that you could listen to your thoughts, right? That's the awareness, and the mind, they're separate, right? There's the awareness and then there's the mind. And so when you're outdoors and when you're pushing yourself physically, you're really able to tap into that inner dialogue. Okay. So the first step in being mindful when you're outdoors is to start listening, to separate yourself from the mind. Okay. And so then you become aware. And the first step to change, the first step to transition is always going to be that awareness. Step number one, right? And so I became aware of this negative dialogue. And then as I was hiking, I started processing and allowing for the space for these feelings to come up, for the negativity to come up, for giving it space. And so a lot of times in life, we don't want to feel. We don't want to feel bad. We don't want to feel, and we don't want to hear these negative things. And so a lot of times we're stuffing. And so then what happens is, and it's scientifically proven, that this is what's causing a lot of the depression, a lot of the anxiety. And so not only is being outdoors in nature good for us because it gets the endorphins going, but if you're able to tap into those feelings and allow the space, they actually start dissipating, right? And that's what I found on the journey, was that I was able to start healing and letting go on the trails. Okay. So I had a lot of resentment. I had a lot of anger. I had a lot of, like I said, negative self-talk. I didn't believe in myself. I didn't love myself. And I think everyone can relate to that at some point in their lives. And so when you're on this journey, when you're in the outdoors, you can actually start practicing letting go and forgiveness. And that is one of the key things you need in a mindfulness practice, is you need to learn the art of letting go. And one of the best ways to do that is for, again, allowing for the space and time to for those emotions and those feelings to come up, and then recognize, I don't need to do anything about this right now, right? You can allow for the stuff to come up, but then there's no need to act. And that is one of the key things of meditation. It's that the Buddha said, you allow for things to come up, and then you can be the awareness. You can see without the action. So the outdoors really allows for this. As you're hiking or as you're rowing, let's say you're doing something else, or you're on your bicycle or you're running, this is a perfect time to allow for this energy buildup in the body to be, releasing all of these things that we can take on throughout the day, whether it's stress, whether it's, fear, any of these emotions that we deal with on a daily basis. And practicing when you're hiking, right? For example, you're going up a mountain, you've got to push in and, push through those thoughts. It's using the step and using the breath to help you to release things out of your life that do not serve you. Okay. And so, yes, as I'm going through this journey, I'm noticing that I'm starting to feel lighter and lighter, and I'm allowing myself to cry if I needed to. And so after some time, I recognized that I wasn't the only one probably suffering and hurting. And so as I finished these 52 hikes, and I had this transformation, which was a physical, a mental, an emotional transformation. I really felt that this could help a lot of people. And I decided to share this movement with as many people. Well, at that point, it wasn't a movement, but I decided to share this story with as many people as I could. And it did become a movement now, where this 52 hike challenge has gone on to inspire and motivate hundreds of thousands of people to get outside and to get moving and to, be in nature. And so throughout these years, I have been teaching myself a lot of different tools on being more mindful. And I think the outdoors is one of the best ways to connect to some sort of energy. Or some people have a problem with the word God, call it source, right? Like, because nature is so grand. And I have gone through this journey of a 12-step program, and 52 became my 12-step program to some extent, because every week I was getting out on the trails and I was connecting. And so a big part of that program is, surrendering. And so I felt like I was surrendering to the mountains, and I felt this could be such a great tool for a lot of other people that also need that level of connection with something greater than themselves. What better place than a beautiful, redwood tree, or this beautiful waterfall, or the beautiful canyons, right? Like in, places like Canyonlands National Park, or the Grand Canyon. So it was just really transformative. And so when you become aware and you're letting go, you start creating new patterns, you start creating new habits. When you're getting outside on a weekly basis, that becomes a part of who you are. And I've studied a lot of how the brain works. And so the more you're getting outdoors, you're actually creating new neuro pathways in your brain, because you're seeing beauty and you're taking that step. And you have to be, when you're taking a step out in nature, you have to be present with your footwork, right? If you're not paying attention, it's so easy for us to potentially trip and fall. And so that's why hiking is actually considered a mindfulness exercise in itself. Now, remember I asked you earlier what kind of a life you would like for yourself, right? And so one of the tools that, for example, Dr. Joe Dispenza, someone that I really like, he uses this walking meditation, he calls it. And so first he asks people to visualize the life that they desire. And one of the most important things is to bring in the feeling of what you want. And then now you go for your hike and envision yourself in the shoes of the person that you want to become. How would you feel? And then you go for your hike. And so it becomes a walking meditation. And so basically you start becoming the person. And so you're rewiring yourself. And when you're out there, so some of the things that I wanted to leave you guys with today was, what are some tools, right? And so when you're hiking, when you're doing your exercises, when you're out in nature, an affirmation is something that you can use as you're on the trails. And so you're basically, for example, let's say you're going up a mountain and your inner negative dialogue comes in and is like, you're too slow, give up. So what you do is you reach within and you go, okay, I know that's the monkey mind. And the awareness says, actually, I'm going to reaffirm myself. I just need to take one step at a time. I just need to take one step at a time. And so these are tools that sometimes we didn't learn as children, right? Like I grew up in a very, I would call it like a little bit crazy of a household with a lot of little sisters, and mom was probably just like so exhausted all the time that there wasn't this positive reinforcement. So I've had to teach myself as an adult how to be kind to myself. And I think that's such an important lesson to learn as adults. It's so easy to be critical of ourselves and our journey and maybe where we are in life, but what we need to do is be kind and be self-reaffirming. And so this is a mindfulness exercise. It's hearing that inner dialogue and then shifting it into a voice of kindness and encouragement, and that, you know, that self-love, which is so important when we're on this journey, and especially in today's society and what's going on in the world. So starting with the affirmation, that's really powerful. I highly recommend that you go and write down a few different affirmations that you can work on. And it can be with anything. If you're telling yourself, you know, that you're slow, you can change that to I'm going at a perfect pace. If it's something like that you tell yourself on a daily basis, like I'm not good enough, you can tell yourself something like I'm exactly where I need to be right now, etc. So if you want, feel free to add any chats. If you want me to give you like a different affirmation, I'm happy to share some of those and in the chat box. And feel free to ask any questions as we go. So another tool you can have in your toolbox as you're out and you're practicing mindfulness is bringing a journal with you on your hikes. And if you're going through something, you know, something I've learned in the last couple years is a lot of times we're projecting things, right? So things that are bothering us with someone else are things that actually we need to work on within ourselves. So bringing a journal, and if you're having a hard day, maybe you're able to journal about that, or maybe you want to journal a gratitude list. Just going out into nature, whether it's on the beach and taking a journal and just writing, can be so therapeutic and a way to practice mindfulness. And so one of the greatest things you can do is actually have a list on a daily basis, really, that's 3 things you're grateful for. And even taking that on your hike or when you're bike riding or running out in nature can be really a great way to start bringing in gratitude, which is, you know, one of the it's actually one of the highest vibrations in the planet, is to think about what you do have, and that thus you're attracting more of that. But when we focus on lack, then we're also attracting more of that. So that's why it's so important to practice gratitude. So I'm going to take a quick sip of water. Feel free to ask any questions. Another exercise that's really great when you're out in nature is just taking a moment. Maybe I like to do this when I'm halfway through my hike. Usually it's at some viewpoint or something like that. And I like to sit down and just be in silence. And sometimes I'll turn my phone on. And by the way, I always say be in a place, a safe space where you feel comfortable. And, you know, go ahead and just sit in silence for 5 minutes. Turn on your timer on your phone. It's really easy. Turn on a timer for 5 minutes and just breathe. Focus on the breath. And so I'll actually walk us through a quick, just a quick little sample of how you would do it, okay? So let's do it right now. So whatever you're doing, put it down and just sit, close your eyes, and take a deep breath. And exhale. And what you do in your meditation, you set your timer for a few minutes. I usually say 5 to start with. Every time the thoughts come, you just allow for the thoughts to come. There's no need to do anything. So we're going to just practice for a few moments and just focus on your breath in and out. Breathing in and breathing out. Take another deep breath and exhale. So just doing that exercise for 5 minutes can make such a big difference in, you know, your breathing, your, you know, just even in stress and anxiety, right? Like taking a few moments to just be in silence. And it's okay. Here's the thing. A lot of people, when they first start meditating, they actually, a lot of times the fear comes in because there's too many thoughts, because you haven't learned how to let go of thought, right? You haven't learned how to separate. So a lot of times that's why people say, I've tried meditating, it doesn't work. Actually, it's okay for thoughts to come up in those few moments. What you do is you just let them go. You know, you become aware, oh, I'm thinking about the thought, and come back to your breath. In and out. And that's how you meditate. And eventually, when you've been working on meditation for long enough, what happens is that you will be able to have moments where you have no thought. And that's where the true meditation lies. Now, it's okay if you only have like a one split second, but in time after time after time, you keep doing this, you become a lot more centered, more balanced. It's easier for you to take that deep breath in the moments that really matter, where life is stressful, like in these times right now that we're in. So it looks like I have a couple of quick questions. I'll address those before I move on into my last exercise that I want to give you guys, and then I will share with you guys some additional tools. So Orlando wants to know if I have a list of resources or text of what I'm saying during this presentation, like the name of the person who speaks about mindfulness and hiking. Okay, so that's a great question. So what I'll do is, I don't think there's a way for me to get your email address right now, but if you guys email me, my email address is hello, HELLO, at 52hikechallenge.com. So send me an email, and what I'll do is I will just quickly send you its bullet points, and then the person who I talked about earlier is Dr. Joe Dispenza. So I'll tell you what book that's in, that he talks about it's the walking meditation. So let's move on into the last tip that I'm going to give you for practicing mindfulness in the outdoors. And that is what I talked about earlier, which was this gratitude exercise. When you're hiking, or when whatever your outdoor activity is of choice, just being present with what you're doing and bringing yourself back to that present moment. Again, the mind always wants to think about the past, and also it wants to be in the future, but it doesn't like for us to be in the present moment. The point of power is always in the present moment. We are creating from our current circumstance and what we're doing at this time, right? It's cause and effect. And so bringing us through the breath into what we're doing at the moment. If we're hiking, focus on your hike and seeing, you know, the trees and whatever's in front of you. If you're with someone while you're on your hike or run, you know, being present with that person and, you know, bringing yourself to what you're doing in the present moment is so important. And that's why I think, you know, when we're outside, we are forced to be in the present moment. And that in itself, again, is a mindfulness experience. And as you all know, it's scientifically proven that being out in nature is proven to decrease anxiety, depression. It's good for your cardiovascular health. It even helps kids, and has been proven to show kids, to help kids that have ADHD to focus better. There's also a study that I found that says that if you disconnect for like 2 or 3 days out in nature, you completely disconnect. You're not on social media, you're not on a computer, you are shown to be 50% more creative. So it's so important. It really, really helps, and especially in today's society. And so, yes, let me write you guys my email so you can send me an email later and I can send you these resources. And I'm putting it in the chat box. And Jojo wants to know if I hike alone, and if so, do I feel safe? So let's talk about that, because I think that's a great question. And really, feeling safe comes from within. And that's why I truly believe in this work of not only the 52 Hike Challenge, but my life work of helping people to become more mindful through the outdoors, and using 52 as a kind of like a building block upon that, right? And so a lot of times when we don't feel safe in general, it has to do with not feeling safe within. Okay. And so I actually did the John Muir Trail with a girlfriend, and I've gone on many hikes on my own. I've backpacked on my own once before. When I did the John Muir Trail with this girlfriend, there was one night where we couldn't sleep near each other, and I was probably 300 plus feet away from her. And so, having that safety within myself where I felt like I trust that no matter what happens, I am safe is one of the key reasons that I've been able to do a lot of these adventures and travel on my own and things of that sort. But that is something that you build towards, right? Like I went from being completely broken in my life and not loving myself to through this journey of 52 hikes, you become self-secure because you realize, my own 2 feet got me to this mountain. And if you learn how to prepare, you take the precautions, you should be fine. But it takes time. You build yourself up. I wouldn't recommend you go for a hike in the backcountry when you're first starting out. I would say, why don't you go with friends? Go to a trail that's pretty populated. And then maybe once you're more comfortable and you've been doing hikes for a while, then you can go to that trail on your own and see how you feel, right? So it's baby steps. You don't just kind of jump in. You start becoming educated. You take classes. You start going to events like these where there's like-minded individuals to help you on your journey and to give you the tools you need. And something we say at 52 always is always carry your 10 essentials. If you don't know what they are, make sure to go to our website, 52hikechallenge.com. And under the store, you can drop it down. It talks about the 10 essentials. So being educated, knowing how to plan and read maps, taking a map and compass class, that all helps you to feel confident in yourself. And so as you start feeling more confident, you're able to take those next steps. So Jim wants to know, besides doing gratitude journals, what other types of writings have you found useful during hikes? So yeah, actually, prompts, there's so many different prompts, right? Like when you're hiking, I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but when you're hiking or when I've been hiking, I've found that I gain insight. Like I might start thinking about something going on in my life and there's just some nugget that comes out from within. And a lot of times that's that inner intuition. But I really feel like there's just insight that comes when you're out in nature and you allow for that. And so sometimes I just write about what I've found through my hike, whether that was some sort of a nugget or maybe someone shared something with me on the trail. And there's different things depends on what you're, wanting to process. But, it might be, today I'm going to allow myself to just be creative and write a poem or, there could be so many different prompts based off of what it is that your current needs are, right? And so if you're feeling like you need some like creativity or something, maybe when you're out, you could tell yourself before you go out already, like, my intention on this hike is to tap into my inner creativity, and then you can write about that. And so it actually, great idea here is setting intentions before you go out on your hike. And maybe you've had a bad day at work, and you're out on your hike after work and you're like, I just need to decompress and I just need to let off some steam, right? And so on that hike, you can really be mindful of, that being your intention, that you're using this hike as a way to decompress so that when you go home, you can be in a good mood. Let's see, the only other thing that I want to add on is that we just launched a small 7-day ebook, and you can find it on the website at 52hikechallenge.com. It's $4.99. We do a lot of programs for free here at 52, run a huge community with leaders and staff. And so all of that really does help us to keep the movement going. And that has some exercises, and it actually has 7 exercises, journaling prompts. We also have a journal at 52 Hike Challenge. You can check all of that out at our store. It really helps us. But really just spreading word of mouth of 52 Hike Challenge is awesome. If you guys can check us out, if you hadn't heard about us, that would be great. But I'd really like to just allow for any other closing questions. Really just getting out the door and being present is, I will say, the #1 tip. Just make it a habit, you know, to at least once a week get out into nature and to make that a part of your lifestyle, because it really will help you to maintain that stress and to, you know, not to maintain, but to help you with stress and to help you to process and, you know, and allow yourself to deal with what's going on within, because when we deal with what's going on within, we can be the best versions of ourselves for our families, for our friends, and just for society as a whole. And I'm just so grateful to nature, and I just love giving back. And thank you guys for allowing me to be here with you guys. And so someone said, Orlando says, if I've heard of forest bathing, it sounds like what I'm describing. Yes, I have. That's called Shinrin-yoku. And if you guys look it up, there is an organization out there. I will type it into the chat box, Shinrin-yoku. You can just look it up on Google and it'll take you to the organization. But basically, they talk about mindfulness when you're out in nature and how you practice that. Again, remember I showed you guys the breathing exercise of just sitting down in nature and just breathing in. There's actually a chemical compound in forest trees and in greenery called phytoncide, which has been shown to actually help create, I believe it's white blood cells, which help to fight, you know, illness. So that's why Shinrin-yoku is prescribed forest bathing, so good for the mind, body, soul, and spirit. And so the other thing they do, and I actually do recommend people do, is just as you're walking by trees, you know, touching them and putting your hands on the trees without obviously going like off trail and stuff, but, you know, putting your hand on a tree as you're walking by it, you know, or touching the leaves or touching a rock. All of that allows with that, again, practicing the mindfulness, being with nature. So let's see, Maddie said, I haven't seen your email or the last study, Shinrin-yoku, you were referring to. Okay, oh, okay, I see that. Okay, let me see if there's a way to everyone publicly. That's what happened. Let's try this again. No, it's still kind of going to, for some reason, give me 1 second, you guys. Okay. Let me see if there's a way for me to do this because I want to make sure you guys get it. Okay, so I'm not really sure why it's not allowing me to send it to you all, but let me just spell it for you so you can write it down. It's SHINRIN space YOKU. Oh, thank you, Thomas. It looks like you were able to write it out to everyone. So, yeah, and then our website is 52hikechallenge.com. And what we're trying to do is, you know, help people to make it a habit to be outdoors. Again, because that's what this journey is all about. It's about creating that positive habit. And then when the mind is out in nature, even though you may be going through something difficult, again, being in grandeur, in beauty, really helps with that rewiring and that recentering and that balancing. And just bring yourself to the present moment. If you're having problems at home or work, whatever's stressing you out, when you can kind of give yourself a space away from that and just being focused on the nature and being focused on the step, being focused on gratitude for your legs, gratitude for being able to see, that's where you start creating that new neural pathway, right, in your brain, which allows for you to have that space and time. So that's it for today, you guys. I will do a quick little overview. become the awareness, recognize that the monkey mind, that inner talk is not really who you are, becoming aware of that, and then being able to listen to your inner self, process feelings when they come up, process emotions internally, allow for the feelings to come up without doing anything. And then learning to let go, learning to forgive, learning to release, and rebuild yourself, right? And to reaffirm yourself, and to go out and to make it a journey for yourself to be out in nature on a weekly basis. And that's where you can start practicing the journaling, the gratitude, the silent meditation, the affirmation, and really start making this life transition and transformation for yourself. So I really appreciate you guys, and hopefully that was helpful. I'll stay on just a few more moments, but that was today's presentation, and I hope it was really helpful, you guys. So you're welcome, Jojo. You're welcome, Maddie, Evan, you're welcome. You're welcome, Alyssa. Thank you all so much. And Thomas, the website is 52hikechallenge.com. Yay, I'm glad Jojo's gonna get out and hike. Let me write this in here. 52hikechallenge.com. There, I finally figured out how to write to everyone. All right, everyone. Blessings to you all. Have an amazing rest of your evening.